Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life.
Hey everybody, welcome back. On today's episode, I've got my friend Jason. Jason and I first met in a couple training courses I taught out in Georgia. He's a very good SWAT officer, a good shooter, and just all around good dude. Real quick, Jason, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background and yourself?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. I've been really excited about being on your show ever since you sent me the invite. So thank you for having me. I've been a police officer now for going on 13 years, split pretty evenly between two departments. The first one was a very, very busy Metro Atlanta department. And now the second one I'm with is a little bit smaller. But for the past 5 of the 6 or 7 years I've been here, I've been assigned to our training unit where I'm responsible for all of our in-service training and a lot of the intermediate advanced post classes as well. And then I also own my a small training company on the side where I teach some more specialized things that we can get into.
So when we met, I really enjoyed, was it the vehicle class first or the CQB first? It was the CQB first, right?
No, it was the vehicle class first.
It was the vehicle first, yeah. We had a good time in that class.
I like closed courses like that because you can tailor them to what your client really needs instead of the broad generalized things. So yeah, when you came, it was very much hey, you guys doing vehicle interdictions? Yeah, let's do some of those. Are you guys doing UC rescue stuff? Let's do some of those. And then the engagements out of the vehicle with the window. You did a really good job of tailoring it to specifically a lot of what we were doing at the time.
Well, thanks. Let's, so your training journey. So I know you were on, a large SWAT team, very busy SWAT team. What did you do apart from what the organization gave you? Because obviously you've done a lot more than just that, because you've got a good solid skill and knowledge base. So I know that doesn't come from the institution, that comes from your own work.
I 100% thank you for that, by the way. But yes, it did not take me very long to realize while my team is very, very experienced, they have a bad habit of being incestuous with their training. They almost never, unless forced to, brought out any outside training. So I knew if I wanted to further my skill set, I would have to go find shooters better than myself, tacticians better than myself, way more experienced SWAT guys to learn from. And so unfortunately, they would not pay for a lot of things. So it was me out of pocket on most of that. It started with my exposure to Frank Proctor. Saw a video of him shooting, and it kind of led me down the rabbit hole of competitive shooting, where I'm at now. And then from there, I kind of took an attitude, and I still have this attitude of I will learn something. If you think you have something to teach me, I will sit in a chair and listen to what you have to say. 100%.
I love Frank, man. Frank is an old friend of mine. He's the guy that got me into competition. Actually, I think I told you that story back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Frank's good people. He's kind of the Zen redneck.
Having been to his facility in Alabama numerous times, I could not agree with that more.
And that's meant, Frank, I know you're going to hear this. That was meant with the highest esteem. Like, that's not a negative. That's a positive. It's definitely a compliment, without a doubt. So no, I love shooting with Frank, and I love learning from him. He's been a real big influence on my shooting and how I look at training, that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was my first, probably still my biggest influence when it came to shooting. And specifically on the information processing side, that was a big light bulb for me. And learning to allow my eyes and brain to see and process what it needs to see and not have to worry about this perfect, shot, waiting for the red dot to completely settle or the sights completely settle. So on the information processing, was huge. That was the first big jump in shooting that I made. And so I still credit Frank with probably being my biggest influence.
So one thing that I just thought about, because I've noticed this myself, both in my past and certain assignments, and also like other people that are in teams or units or organizations that don't value outside instruction, or that prefer to train amongst themselves. Maybe that's a better way to put it. It's not that they don't value it, it's that they don't seek it out. Did you come across any resentment for going out and seeking knowledge from other places? Did you get any pushback on that?
No, you tend to get that pushback a little bit when you try to bring it back.
Yeah.
And you try to start showing some things, and whether people adopt it or not is really no skin off my back, but I really did enjoy, and I think this is where it kind of lit the fire for me to become an instructor later, was I really enjoyed going and collecting this knowledge, and I was really excited about it. And then I'd come back with equal excitement of, hey guys, look at this stuff I just learned. Here it is on the table. Do you think there's anything here that we could adopt? Is there anything that we can do better? And it's very hit or miss, and you being on teams of law enforcement and military can attest to this too. Sometimes it's met with equal excitement. Other times the ego gets in the way, or it would be a thing, well, I would have to now learn something new, and I don't really want to do that. So I will just tell you that we're not going to do the thing you just brought back. So it was hit or miss. I would say where I found my foothold on the team would be the new members. So each time a new member came on board, when I came on board, there was not an onboarding, I guess, course or onboarding period to where they try to get you up to speed. And so my thought process would be, you're new to the team and this is a very fast op tempo. I kind of need you to be squared away as soon as possible. So I'll come out and help you get up to speed quicker than I was.
So if there's no operators course, like what did your process for bringing people on look like? Was like selection and initial training kind of combined? Because I've seen that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I don't really like that approach.
And looking back on it, I would agree, because all I cared about and feared and needed to get through mentally was just the smoking sessions. I couldn't really tell you much about the actual basic SWAT school classroom material. Now I took a bunch of notes and I still have those notes, but now that was 2015. So 10 years removed from that selection process. And I couldn't really tell you much of what we went over that time, because all I'm really focused on is, oh crap, they're about to smoke us again. Cause that's essentially what ours was show up in the morning, smoke session, a little bit of classroom, smoke session, a little bit of classroom, smoke. And it just repeats that for 60 hours that week. So all I really mentally tried to get through were just the smoke sessions. And I think I'm tired throughout the whole day, especially as the week goes on. So I think that information just hits deaf ears at that point. I'm not really checked in at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're just trying to pass the selection process.
Correct.
We were really lucky in Chicago. And I mean, no team is perfect by any means,
right.
But we had a 3-week selection process and a 3-month operators course. And I say 3 week, but really what it boiled down to is there's a bunch of individual testing that was done over the space of several weeks. It would have been a week if it had been combined, right? And for that, they weren't detailed to the unit yet. They were coming in and doing their swim test and coming in and doing their obstacle course and coming in and doing their PT test and their shooting test and all that. And then after that, there was the actual 2 week where they were detailed to us. And the first week was flat range shooting with a bunch of smoke sessions, right? And then the second week was CQB, not really any smoke sessions, but that was more to test how well they could learn CQB, if they had that mental gear that you have to do it, because not everybody's got it. Some people are really good athletes, are very intelligent, and they can't process information under stress in that compressed time frame well enough. And no dig on them. It's a talent some people have and some people don't, right? And then after that, so I was running the training and I asked for 3 months for the operator's course, thinking I would get, if I was lucky, 6 weeks. And they gave me all 3 months. So of course, my first reaction was, why didn't I ask for 6 months? Right? But so we'd get them for 3 months. And for 3 months, we had them 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, sometimes overtime on top of that. And we were teaching them everything. And by the time they did those 3 months, they didn't have the operational seasoning yet, but they had such a good grounding, training wise in everything they had to do on the job. It was very nice. That's one thing that my team definitely did right.
During those 3 months, they would not go on any operations with you guys, correct? It was just strictly a new operator training course.
For big things, sometimes they would come out and help out as runners, but they weren't on entries, they weren't on the perimeter, they weren't doing SWAT stuff. They were being gophers and observing.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And it wasn't all of them, unless we had a really small class. It was hey, it's your turn to go and help out and check things out. And they got a little bit of overtime out of that, and they got to see how things went without getting thrown into the fire.
Yeah, see, I think I don't know any other way to do it than have some kind of our onboarding train up course. I don't know. I've been a part of 2 different teams, and my second one, when you came out, my second one did primarily just a physical selection. And then after that, it was just our monthly sessions. And I guess until they found a role to put you in. And I tried to institute even a small version of some kind of new operator training course there too. And it wasn't very well received, but I don't know any other way to do it. How else? If you leave it up to the monthly training, it's going to take forever for them to get up to standard to where they're competent and can be productive.
Well, and I'm going to be honest too. And obviously some teams pull it off, because I've seen some really solid part-time teams. I've seen some ones that are really good, but they've really got to care about being good at it to do it with just a monthly training session. You've really got to care. And the only way I've seen it work is kind of like the way because remember, I was in a National Guard SF unit. Now, that wasn't just a weekend a month. It actually worked out to be a lot more than that. I was gone a lot, right? But there were still long periods of time where all I had was drill, and I had to stay current on everything. So you wind up doing all of your individual task stuff, your fitness and your shooting and everything else. You just did on your own. And that's how it's got to be for a part-time team to be switched on, I think. You can't burn up do you guys get 2 days a month? What do you get?
Yeah. So I've seen both ends. So as on a full-time team, the full-time element can kind of train whenever we wanted to in between operations. And we tried to maximize that time as much as we could. And then you had our monthly training where it'd be augmented by all your part-time guys. And within a year, I was on the sniper side. So our monthly training was just me doing our sniper stuff. I didn't have anything to do with the infantry team at that point. But when I transitioned to my new department and got on our team here, you kind of see what real time management for a part-time, how important that is. You can't do a full range day, which really ends up being only a few hours because you show up a little bit, everybody trickles in, you do a little bit of shooting, long lunch, and then you cut it early. So you're not even really a full day of shooting. And then you've got 8 hours left, but you've got a bunch of mission sets that you've got to get good at within that 8 hours. If you're not good at time management and maximizing your short blocker range time, maximizing your CQB, because that probably needs to be in every single monthly training, and then finding out a little bit of carving out a little bit of time for those little bit of rarer mission sets, your VIP stuff maybe, or I don't know what, if guys do maritime, a little bit of maritime, maybe that's on the side, but your 16 hours needs to be a full 16 hours, and it almost never is. And if you do like most teams, if you do a full range day on the first one, that doesn't leave a whole lot of time on that second day to get everything you need in.
So the way I would do it if I was going to run a part-time team, right, is all individual shooting would be done on your own. All individual fitness would be done on your own. And, however many times you'd qual them a year, that would be during the team training, but it'd be a test. It wouldn't be training. It'd be a test. Okay.
Right.
If you did, have you been doing your work? Did you pass? Same thing with the fitness test, right? And then, man, everything would be tactics. It would be vehicle takedowns. It'd be CQB. It'd be all of that. But to do that, you've got to have people disciplined enough to do the other stuff on their own. And I saw a team that it was a part-time team, but basically if you had an additional duty on the team, you had an additional training day. So snipers got another training day separate from the rest of the team. Breachers got a training day separate from the rest of the team, right? And I like that model too, because then you're fitting in the skills they need to be good at that aren't skills everybody does.
Yeah.
And that I think is kind of probably the way to crack the problem as a part-time team. And like I said, I've seen some part-time teams that were really good. And I've seen some full-time teams that were maybe not so great. So a lot of it depends on selection, the culture of the team, the management, leadership, like all those things play a role, right? Like I had a guy on a Midwest team, a full-time team, and I'm not going to name, because overall they were a really good team. But my 345 drill, the one for the patch, right? So I briefed him on it, and I was like, oh, shoot it. The guy raises his hand, and he's an old salty vet on the team, right? And he goes, what's the law enforcement standard for this? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, those times are like for competitors, right? What's the law enforcement standard on this? And I was like, you don't get a professional discount on performance. What's wrong with you? You don't get a police discount on performance. That's not how it works. That's for Starbucks. Like that's for Starbucks and Popeyes. Like that's for fast food and fucking coffee. You don't get a police discount on performance. If anything, it should be the other way around.
I need the head start because I'm coming out of a level 3 holster. I don't know what to tell you. You have what you have, so get good at the level 3 holster, right?
Yeah. If that's what they make you carry, then get really good at it because that's what you're going to carry. It's what you're going to be in a gunfight with. Like oh man, I saw something. I actually had it sent to me the other day when I shared it with a bunch of people. I should have sent it to you. And it was this guy ranting about what cops were like in the 90s. And the guy wasn't a cop, but it was hilarious. He's like, the cop, and he's showing like fat current video of cops in the background, like really bad video, right? And he's like blue screened in front of him, and he goes,
oh, I did see this.
What happened to cops in the 90s? Veins bulging out of their neck, buzz cuts, looking like they stepped off a SWAT poster, chase you for 3 miles, take a puff on a cigarette and say some effed up stuff like, you have the right to remain unconscious.
I did see that. And he's spot on. He is spot on.
He is.
I can tell you on the training side and being next door to our recruiting side and getting the new people in. You're getting some lesser standards. We just had Well, in Georgia, the instituted requirements to become a police officer was only a recent thing within the last couple of years. And originally, it was going to be something you had to do periodically. And the sheriffs all got together. The Sheriff's Association here in Georgia has a lot of power. They got together and they changed it. Now technically you only have to do it one time just to get into the academy. Different departments can make you do it periodically if they want to, but you really only have to do it one time to get in. And the state qual is now different. They took the 25-yard shooting out completely. It's just 15 and in. It is, yeah, it's getting lower and lower and lower. And it is because of a lot of the sheriff's departments. They're getting, the Sheriff's Association getting together and changing things they need people and they don't care what the numbers are. So it's very interesting to see the incoming generation of police officers. Not all bad, not all, don't get me wrong, but changing.
I think it's kind of, I'm seeing kind of an interesting phenomenon, right? Because I go around the country, and what I'm seeing is, I think we have as many truly high performers as we ever did.
Yeah.
But I think our average has gotten lower, and our lower performers are lower. And ironically, I think because of like advancements in training and understanding tactics and understanding how to train shooting and how to train combatives or defensive tactics, excuse me, I hate that phrase, it's combatives, and advances in, like, everybody knows more about fitness now than they used to, right? Everybody who cares about fitness. So your high performers are better than ever, actually. They're not more numerous than ever, but they're better than ever. But then your median and your lower bracket are getting worse and worse, I think.
Yes.
And it's an interesting shift, right? It's like the bell curve is flattening out and getting wider.
Well, and yes, and you're also seeing a lot of lack of desire for any kind of collateral duty, specialized units, anything that would require you to do a little bit of work to even get there. Nowadays, people are just like, I'd just rather not even do it. So you're seeing less and less SWAT team tryouts. You're seeing, less and less, I don't know. Me personally, when I was coming up, if you wanted to get with a specialized unit, you would have to go on your off time and go volunteer. You wouldn't even get paid. You go do some work with that unit to show your face. They get to know your name. And then when the next position notice came out, you're probably at the top of the list, but you had to put in work to get there. It wasn't just, hey, I think I'm really good, here's my resume. They'd look at this thing, especially at large departments, and go, I don't even know who you are, so why would I pick you for my unit? And so now you're seeing a lot of people just go, I'd rather just not even do the extra work to get to these units. And so it's been fascinating. People I think are just happy with their patrol shifts, clocking in and clocking out.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of contributing factors to that, I think, right? Like, one is a societal thing. I hate to be the guy with the gray beard talking about the young generation, but I am the guy with the gray beard, and it is the young generation, so I'm going to say it anyway, right? And not that there aren't some really, like, motivated, hardworking, high performers in young kids. There absolutely are. And there probably are as many as there ever were. But it's kind of the same thing we're seeing in law enforcement. The ones that a generation or two past still weren't the really motivated ones. They would have put in a little more extra work because it had been taught to them that they had to. But now they've been kind of taught by society that they don't have to, so they don't. It's not that they're any worse as personality types than they would have been in the past. It's that now they have the excuses to not do it, where the guys in the past at the same motivation level didn't have the excuse, I think, right? So I think that's part of it. And then honestly, I think another big part of it has been the campaign to vilify law enforcement.
That's part of it, right? You've got and I've said this too, and money plays a factor into it as well, but you're not, the candidates you're getting, they're not top candidates in a lot of ways. And I'm not trying to say that despairingly, because I have contact and access to our new hires when they come through a lot. They're when we get our new hires, they're assigned to the training unit for a while. They got a lot of initial things to do. When they get done with the academy, they're assigned back to me for some additional training before they go to FTO. So I see them all. I'm not trying to say anything disparagingly about anybody coming through, but I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong at all.
Well, and I don't even necessarily think that either one of those things are these kids' fault. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times it can be overcome, but quite honestly, the willingness to crucify cops for good faith mistakes has made people gun shy, and it kind of should. Like there's validity behind that point of view. When I came on the job, it was not uncommon for somebody coming on the job in the department I was on to be a military vet. That's nowhere near as common now. A lot of military veterans are going, why do I want to get jammed up for another, why don't I go to another job where I can get jammed up again? I don't want to do
blame
that.
them.
I don't either. But it's a loss of that. Yes. In some respects, the job is different than the military, right? The ROE is different. The optics are different. Operational environment is different. But so many of the principles carry over, and so many of the character traits that make you a good soldier make you a good cop. And it's a shame that we're losing that. And it's understandable that we're losing it. But it's criminal on the part of politicians who have made cops their whipping boys for the last 10 years.
I've
so
never
I like
heard
that.
Why that is.
I understand why it is, but the bottom line is it's self-serving and evil on their parts. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, you need people to protect society. And when you vilify the protectors, you no longer have the protection. I'm not saying that police brutality is okay. Of course it's not. But a lot of times what people think is police brutality is just the reality of violence. Violence doesn't look like people think it does. It doesn't look like it does on, oh God, I hate that show, that Chicago PD show. And what network is that on?
Yeah.
Good. That means you don't watch it, which is good. They paid me and the two other SF guys on CPD and took us out to a nice dinner and beers to ask us our opinions on a bunch of things about a character on that show. And as near as I can tell, they did it exactly so they could do the exact opposite of what we said. Because one of the guys in the show is supposed to be a former Green Beret, right? So they took us out and they talked to us and everything, and got what would a Green Beret and CPD dress like? What would he look like? And we told them, and they did it exactly opposite. It was totally different.
So I
was like, what? I was like, why did you spend the money then? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the dinner. It was fun. But why did you bother to do it if you weren't going to listen to a damn thing we said?
I don't think very many police officers can watch a lot of those procedural shows. I'm one of them. I'll give a lot of them an opportunity. My wife absolutely loves them, but we always find ourselves being critical and asking questions and saying, "Oh, that's not real. That's not real. That's not how they do them." That one specifically is a very fascinating one to me because you have this really cool plainclothes unit that does every single thing in the department, and they call it an intelligence unit, but they handle everything, and I mean everything.
Yeah, that's not how any of that works.
No.
So the Wire was good.
The Wire
was that was what my life as a cop was like for the first half of my career. Like The Wire was dead on.
Yeah, the writing on that was phenomenal. I don't think they've had anything since.
No. And, the early seasons of NYPD Blue weren't bad. It got kind of funky as it went on, but in the beginning it was pretty good. But yeah, after that, like I couldn't watch The Shield. I was like, what? No.
I mean, everybody within that one, everybody's arrested within 2 weeks. They're all
Yeah.
just all doing illegal stuff, and you're all going to jail. So that show would ended very
Yeah.
quickly and really bloody.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So we've gone down a rabbit hole. What were we talking about? Oh, so the new kids. So we've got the societal influence, and we've got the witch hunt and law enforcement influence. And what it's done is you've taken a generation that has been kind of coddled anyway and told them that if they do anything proactive, they're going to wind up going to jail. And not like Vic Mackey on The Wire, who should go to, or not on The Wire, on The Shield, who should go to jail, but like something in good faith. Like when I was brand new, dude, you could make a good faith mistake. I mean, you couldn't, shoot somebody, but you could make a good faith procedural mistake and not get jammed up. And that's not really the case anymore.
Well, you also had supervisors too that weren't afraid to back their people. Even on the immediate level, you're seeing more and more risk-averse supervisors that are afraid to make decisions. They're afraid to, make those hard calls in rapidly evolving, ongoing situations. And so then that leaves me to I have to make that decision for myself. And then when I do make that decision, on the flip side, on the back end, you'll tell me it was wrong, and now I'm being reprimanded for it.
Well, there's a difference between management and leadership, right? And both have their place in an organization. It's not like you can just not have management and only have leadership. You need both, right? But in a crisis situation, you've got to have leadership. Management's not enough. It's just not.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I tested for sergeant here at our department this past year, and I've had this discussion with quite a few people, but I thought going into our testing process, it was going to be, me in front of officers from other departments. They would bring in some sergeants, lieutenants from other departments, and have a panel, and they would say, "All right, officer, here is the situation you have. This is the context. What are you going to do?" And so you start going through your policy. What resources do I have? Do I have the helicopter? Are we going into another jurisdiction? They go, "Yeah, you're going into another jurisdiction." All right, well, notify them, see if they have anybody. Our policy states only so many can cross over jurisdictional bounds, so I've got to pull somebody like you. So you understand what I'm saying? As these things evolve, I'm reevaluating, making adjustments, adapting. It wasn't like that at all. It had nothing to do with any of that. So what about this?
Our promotional process had nothing to do with leadership. It was all about management and knowing the rules.
See that, and then when the critical incidents hit, you wonder why it turns to chaos. It every time, every single time. Then we'll talk about it on the back end, and hopefully nothing went so catastrophically wrong that people lost their lives or got hurt. But instead of regularly preparing yourself for those critical incidences, we wait. We're like that reactive thing, right? Something happens and we'll try to fix it on the back end, and then something else happens and we'll make the changes and fix it on the back end.
So this is one thing the Army does really well, is leadership. Now, let me slice that finer, all right? Because I'm talking about specifically the infantry and special operations in the Army. I'm not talking about the Army as a whole. The Army as a whole and a lot of the officer corps, depending on the branch, aren't that great at being leaders either. But if you're an enlisted guy coming up in combat arms, you basically get thrust into that sort of decision-making under stress situation from the moment you go to your first leadership school. And then again at every leadership school, including Ranger School if you go, including selection for Special Forces if you go, including the Q course for Special Forces if you go, your advanced NCO courses, every single one of those until you get to like Sergeant Major, then it's all just management, right? Sorry, Smadge, it's the truth. But like you do this over and over and over again. and you learn to make decisions under pressure rapidly and correctly without freaking out. And that's a skill you have. Yes, some people are better at it than others. Some people are so bad at it, they'll never be good at it. But you'll never be as good at it as you can be without the training. Whether you're naturally good at it or not, you can be better at it. And that's a skill you can never be good enough at when things hit the fan. Like you've got to be able to be good at that. And you can't just magically be good at that without ever having done it.
No, it's not one of those things you step up in the moment and rise to the occasion on. That doesn't really work.
Oh,
that way.
I hate that concept because that is such a myth. Like if you watch Hollywood, everything about an athlete, everything about a soldier, everything about a cop in Hollywood, if the cop's the hero and not the bad guy,
right,
has you magically rising to the occasion in the moment of crisis. That's just not how any of that works. You don't magically rise to anything.
No. And you can look at body cam footage and it'll reinforce that every single time.
Yep.
Every single time.
Oh God, here's another pet peeve. All right, here's a segue, but as a trainer, I want to talk to you about this because I hate this. I hate the current trend of saying, well, this is what we always see on body cam, so we're going to train people to do it that way. Like the retreating bill drill. Like, oh God. Like, I'm not saying you should never do that, but I'm going to say you should very seldom, if ever, do that. Like, that's not the appropriate response. And because people do it panicked, everybody wants to do the retreating bill drill and dry fire and live fire. I'm like, what are you doing? Train them to be aggressive. It's a fight.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to pull specifics out, right? Oh, this person backed up while they shot, and this person backed up while they shot. So we should just do a lot of backing up while shooting. Yeah, I don't think you should pull those out of context like that. We use them for trends and patterns, right? What are we seeing? And I can gear my training towards that. But
right, but what you're doing is you're identifying weaknesses in the current training paradigm. What needs to be improved? What do people need to do better? Not make them better at the bad thing they chose to do because they were panicked.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know, like you need that feedback loop. Absolutely. It's like going to a match and the first thing you do is review your footage of the match and go, okay, I did this bad. I need to be better at this. I need to work on this. You're giving yourself an AAR and you're seeing what you need to be better at. And that's totally legitimate. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, well, this is how people react under stress. No, he reacted that way under stress because he was panicked and terrified because you didn't train him right.
Yeah, I see.
And that's not his fault. And that's not his fault. That's the department's fault for not training him right.
No, that's a great point. I see what you're saying. Yeah, and I have seen the trend. I know the trend you're talking about. It tends to happen a lot, right? You see the things on the body or the body cam footage, and then all of a sudden it becomes a drill, and it doesn't need to become a drill.
And I want to be clear. I am not putting down the officers who did that under stress. I'm not. I'm pointing out a flaw in their training that then is becoming institutionalized without being corrected. It's not their fault. It's that they weren't trained properly. You can only react the way you've trained.
You're right. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Musashi said that in the 1500s, and it's still true. You know who Musashi was, right? The swordsman?
Book of Five?
Book of Five Rings, yeah. Yeah, one of his big things in the Book of Five Rings is you can only fight the way you've trained. Which is different than train like you fight, because that's another one I hate.
That got taken to another place that I don't think it was originally intended.
No. Well, like, did you ever play football?
Mm-hmm.
I figured you did. You look like a Georgia football guy. So it's a compliment, dude. It's a total compliment. So every practice session, you'd put on all your pads and scrimmage for the whole session, right?
Right.
No team does that. No MMA fighter gets in the octagon every training session and goes 100%.
Right.
But that would be training like you fight. But that's also not the best way to train for the fight. And people conflate those two things, I think. And I'm not saying it has no value to do full scenarios and full kit. Of course it does. but it's got to be the appropriate amounts with the appropriate amounts of the other kinds of training as well. You know,
I think people, I don't know your experience. I know in mine, I have seen people, teams, units jump prematurely into those bigger, larger scale scenarios, right? More complex, but didn't isolate the things that they needed to leading up to those. And so then it turns to shit, and then we have to talk about why, where you can take any of those scenarios, you can isolate the things that I need to do leading up to them as a team, as an individual,
Yeah.
and then isolate them as a team, and then we put those things together into those big scenarios.
Yeah, and you don't go straight from isolating to the full complex scenario. You start making simpler scenarios and pieces of it, like building blocks, you know, and build on that. And you get a lot better results in the big scenarios that way than just by throwing people off the high dive.
Well, and I think a big example in both teams I have been on were like the hostage rescue scenarios we would do. It would be, first off, it would be a lot of negotiating, very little SWAT side of things. But once the crisis actually kicked off, the actual rescue piece didn't look like it was supposed to, because you didn't really spend a lot of time on the actual specific rescue piece of what it looks like to move to the door, do your door procedure, and then make your entry, whether it's 2, 3, or 4. I don't really care, but what it means to actually, the details of those specific things, to then when it does kick off, it looks efficient, because it is efficient, and not a bunch of individuals doing individual things in a chaotic fashion.
I think the really, and I'm going to choose my words carefully here, because I don't want to overstate it, because the really big scenarios do have their place. They absolutely do. But I have noticed that they tend to be more for the command and control elements than they are for the operational elements. And that's important. Like, those guys need training and practice too. I'm not saying it's not important. But like, we would do these big full-blown scenarios at like major venues in Chicago, and you'd spend the entire day there for like one rep, and then we'd do like a couple little short reps afterwards that were just us. But that wasn't for us. That was for the bosses. And that's okay, because it's necessary for them too. But they somehow thought that was good training for us as well. And I'm like, no, this is not for us. This is for the commanders and the deputy chiefs and, the district bosses and all the other moving parts, so they can coordinate everything. And they need to be able to do that. But don't think this was a good training for us for hostage rescue, because it was not.
No. I always viewed them to kind of see where we were. They weren't actual training days. We didn't get better from them.
Yeah. No.
But you got a little bit of view of where your capabilities are, right?
You can absolutely use it as a test and get that feedback. Yeah, 100%. But it's not training then. It's just a test.
Right. And I think maybe if you viewed them that way, they might be executed better or differently. Instead of viewing it as training, view it as a test and call it a test. It's fine. Yeah. And if you pass, great. And if you fail, then okay, we pick ourselves back up and we start working on the next one.
Yeah, you do good AAR, holding back no punches, and then you get back to the work.
That's it.
That's the other thing that I think is lacking in a lot of teams. And my team in Chicago was pretty good about this too. But SF is one of the things that makes SF as good as it is the AAR. Because the ARs were brutal. Now, they weren't a bullying session. It wasn't that. But it was brutal. To the point where you were desperate to get out your mistakes before somebody else got on you. You're like, I know what I did.
Yeah, I would say that is something that my first team did really, really well. I learned very quickly that if you didn't perform, we had a lot of competition in a lot of different ways, whether it was shooting or who was going to do best on a training day, on a training rep, just a lot of competition, and it fostered a very good environment. But if you performed poorly, no matter what it was, you were going to catch some comments from someone holding you accountable for it. and telling you that you needed to do better. And you could either get mad and leave and take your ball and go home, or you could take it to heart and try to do better, right? And AARs would be the same way. We'd close the door, and for a little bit, rank doesn't matter, and we get to say who messed up and how they should fix it.
Yep.
And that's how
one
it should be.
And one of the cardinal sins is making excuses. Just own it.
That's 100%.
You're always, at least on the teams I was on, and this is the way I think it should be, is you're immediately forgiven if you own it. Like, you're forgiven. You just got to fix it. And we all got to fix it, because the mistake you make today might be the mistake I might make tomorrow, right? So, it's not like people hold it against you. I mean, it'd be different if you got somebody killed, but you know what I mean? Like, a no harm, no foul mistake.
Right.
If you own it, then you're forgiven. Just fix it. Just don't do it again.
Yeah.
Now, if you keep doing it, it's a different story.
Yeah. I would say that it, like, so one of the kind of informal collateral roles I have now is I assist our plainclothes unit a lot with their operations. So our plainclothes unit, since it's a small department, handles all ICAC, all human trafficking, all counter narcotics underneath one umbrella. And they're great detectives, but because it's a smaller unit and a lot of caseload, they don't have the time or the resources to put into the tactical, the apprehension side of things. So they outsource it to me. And I have a little group that I train specifically for those, like, more directed action operations. And a lot of the times we will do multi-day operations. So if it's an ICAC operation, we're doing it over the course of 3, 4, 5 days. So when we do a vehicle interdiction and after it's done, I get the chance to do an AAR right then and there. We have the time to discuss any kind of rough edges that we need to smooth out, and then reload, because we've got the next one coming. And now we've got a chance to do a better repetition already. I don't have to wait for another couple of days, week, whatever it is. We're reloading and going almost immediately again. And so I get to repeat that process over 4 or 5 days. And so I get to refine things at a much faster rate, which I wasn't used to on my SWAT teams. And it's been very fascinating and interesting to come to see it that way, see it a little bit differently, and approach it a little bit differently.
I ran a team for a couple of years in Chicago it was a plainclothes team. And basically our job was writing search warrants and executing. That was basically our job. That wasn't our technical name or anything like that. But that was, when you get right down to it, that was the nuts and bolts of what we did. And it was always targeting gang members, pretty bad guys, right? So we would come in and we had unlimited overtime. So the way this gig would work is we would come in, and the first couple of days, all of the guys that worked for me were talking to their sources and working stuff up and writing up warrants. And then the last 3 days of every week, we pretty much wouldn't go home. We'd just do hits. And usually we would flip people from the warrants to write other warrants and just go out and do them right away. And in that gig, I had kind of the same experience. Like, I could immediately AAR stuff, and we'd go out and do another hit right away.
Yeah.
Like, we were doing hits for 3 days straight and not going home.
Yeah. And so your efficiency
nap in the office. Yeah.
Your efficiency goes through the roof in a much shorter period of time. Like, I can picture you guys moving very, very well together, because not only are you a busy unit, but you're getting that ability to do an immediate AR and then another rep right after, and then an AR and maybe another rep right after. And it's just a refinement after refinement after refinement.
To a point, because I have a theory on this that I actually developed between my time there and my time at SWAT. I think the training to operational tempo balance is extremely important on both sides.
Agree.
Because operational tempo too high that you can't get enough training, you start to become complacent, because whether it's the military or law enforcement, usually things don't go south. So you start to become complacent. Training tempo very high, but operational tempo low, and you start to become unrealistic. And I think you have to have a balance. And I think this is something that if I was still involved in the profession, maybe I will anyway. Maybe I'll write a white paper on this. So I think this is actually something a lot of supervisors miss. And I mean higher level supervisors. You know what I mean? Like, deputy chiefs and superintendents. Sorry, we had so many layers of command in Chicago because the department was so big. You know what I mean?
I can believe it.
But, bosses at that level don't really understand that. You know what I mean? Like you have to give these guys, you have to have sufficient staffing that the operational tempo is not so high that people become complacent. And complacency is kind of tied in with burnout, but it's not really the same thing. You know what I mean? Burnout is not caring anymore. Complacency is nothing ever goes wrong. I've done it a million times. Nothing ever happens. Even if it's subconscious, even if consciously it's not the truth, it's so easy to fall into that when you're doing hit after hit after hit after hit over and over again.
I would agree.
And I think that there's a delicate balance there. Yeah, you just gave me an idea for like a blog post. I'm gonna have to work on that. So thanks for the thanks for the inspiration, dude.
Absolutely. I look forward to reading it.
So so going from a big department to a small department, what was that like on the training side for you? Not as a trainer, but as an officer.
It was pretty minimal when I first got here. They had two instructors for the entire department, and a lot of it would be, your monthly block of in-service is quals, and to me that just wastes a block of in-service.
That's not training.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So because
first off, most law enforcement qualification courses aren't even good sobriety tests.
Yeah.
But even if they were difficult, testing isn't training.
No. And that was one of the big things I tried to, once I did get over to the training, was trying to separate that. Hey, let's figure out a different way to qual. And we're just losing a whole block of in-service that we could be using for something else, something more productive. And the system we have now works a lot better. But when I first got here, it was pretty minimal. To be honest with you, I can't remember. I don't want to say anything negative about the instructors themselves. I don't remember anything notable or of worth. Like nothing stuck out. Nothing. I can remember my time on the road, but I don't remember any notable training sessions that we had. So I got lucky because of my SWAT experience coming into my new department. They waived their wait period, so I got to try out almost immediately for the team here. And then that's where I met Rudy, and Rudy had been either already in the training unit or was assigned to it almost right after I got here. And so with that relationship we formed on the team, he advocated for me to get pulled over to the training unit within about a year. And then we just tried to hit the ground running, trying to change a bunch of stuff. And he has since left, and I have been kind of carrying that flag, ever since. But I would say it's minimal. It was minimal. It wasn't very adequate. And one of the guys that was an instructor when I first came on is someone I'm very close with in this department, and he is a great instructor. He is a great asset when I do some of these operations. I think that having the training unit on the back of two people is a hard task, no matter what the size of the agency is. There's only so much you can do, and you're not in a power role. So it's not like I can snap my fingers and say, hey, this is how it's going to be. I can say that, and then some of the sergeants and lieutenants here might go, no, we don't really like that idea. I'm going to go to the chief and get him to change it. And they do. And so in a lot of ways, it's an uphill battle. And in other ways, it's been a lot of successes.
One of the things that I've kind of noticed traveling around the country, and I noticed this in Chicago too, right, is that it seems to me like the busy jurisdictions don't get enough training, even though they're the ones doing a lot of work. And then the wealthier, more peaceful jurisdictions seem to get a lot of training and have very well-trained officers who never get to do it for real, or seldom.
You're spot on,
You know?
and that's exactly what has happened since I have been here. I have been lucky. I've had a lot of sergeants here. Not a lot. I've had a few, but they've pretty much given me, at this point, I've earned a lot of capital in the department. I pretty much have free reign to do what I want to do in service and focus on the things that I think are important. And and put them in a way to where they're valuable. They are things that I try to simplify things down so much that, not so much, but I try to simplify things down to where you can use them immediately. That way, if we go over felony stops, for example, and I need you to be able to take something because you are probably going to have to do one tomorrow or the next day. So you're right. In certain ways, I have been able to go out and still attend a lot of training and then bring a lot of stuff back. And now, because I'm trying not to be a gatekeeper, I don't want to be a gatekeeper, but I get to prioritize what I think officers are seeing a lot of or encountering a lot. And so those are the things we get to focus on. Patrol clears a lot of structures, period, no matter what the department is. So we do a lot of two-man CQB, whether that's low light, daylight, doesn't matter. Marksmanship's always going to be a thing. We do a lot of felony stops. So there's always going to be a felony stop or high-risk traffic stop block. And we can never be too good at combatives. So there's always going to be a combatives block. So I've been able to simplify things down into the things that we are definitely going to see on a weekly, if not nightly basis. And we can get good at those specific things. And I don't have to worry about, you sitting through putting you through a 2-day class on de-escalation. I get it. De-escalation is great. Don't get me wrong. De-escalation is great. But using force is a form of de-escalation. So I need everybody to know how to use force.
You touched on something that, quite honestly, is my weakness as an instructor, and I'll be the first to admit it. And it's so important, and I've seen some people do it very well, and that's the ability to distill down, because you don't get the luxury of having people that are going to train in these things day in and day out. You know what I mean? Right. Not everybody in your department is going to go roll at the PJJ gym. Not everybody in your department is going to go to the range every week on their off time or shoot USPSA matches, right? That's just the reality. It's just not going to happen. And you've got to give them things they can use without additional training. You've got to do that. Yes. And I'll be the first to admit that is my weakness as an instructor, because that was never me. I was always the other guy. And I have a hard time identifying with that student, but it matters. And that was actually a big thing for me. Like, I think what finally got me to be better at that, even though I still hate to do it, like it's still not my favorite thing to do. Like, I don't teach a beginner's class, and that's by design. I don't want to teach a beginner's class. I'd rather pull my teeth. Right? So, but training foreign troops was what got me to finally understand how to simplify things down like that. Because I couldn't, I can't take an Afghan commando and turn him into a Green Beret. It's just not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not going to happen. I'm not saying there aren't guys in that unit that are capable of it. Of course there are. But because of the realities of their military, the culture, this place they were in during the war, like, because of all of those things, it's just not going to happen, And that's nothing against the Afghans. I mean, I could just as easily say about the people in Central America I trained before the towers fell. You know what I'm saying? Like culturally and socioeconomically, it just wasn't the group I could do that with. So I had to learn how to give them what I could that they could retain. And that's always like a personal struggle for me as an instructor, because I want to give people more than that, but not everybody is the right audience for more than that.
Yeah, it took me a while, but a big thing for me as an instructor in the development part was I realized as police officers, there are so many things we have to be really good at, right? I have to
Yep.
know law enough to converse with judges and attorneys, and I have to know, I have to be aware of a lot of mental health symptoms to identify things, and I have to be a relationship expert. I have to be able to talk to, there's just so many things that we have to know as police officers. And then here I come along with, hey, I want you guys to all be experts in CQB too. And people are just like, man, that's not really going to happen. The more I shove into the brains, something's got to come out the other side too. So it has been a huge goal of mine every time I teach to strip away as much nuance as I can get away with without losing your principles, without losing your concepts, without losing your TTPs, and then give you those things that set that foundation that you can then use immediately if we need to. And I will try to build upon that as we go.
Cool thing about what you just said, though, is if it's done right, you're giving them the framework to do the more advanced things later if they decide to train more intensely and more seriously in it. Like if you're teaching them shooting with the proper principles, if they decide to start competing later and really trying to become a good shot, they've already got that foundation, right? Same thing with the combative, right? If they decide to start going to the dojo, are they giving them anything that's going to hold them back, right? And that's what I hate about some of the institutional training of the past, is that with the intent that was correct of making it something people could use right away, rather than just stripping away the excess like you were talking about and simplifying it down, but keeping the principles and that they would make it like a good example is the press out draw, right? Like the press out draw does make sense if you're not going to dry fire all the time. It does, because you're lining up the sights as you press out the gun. But in very short order, that becomes a limiting factor to your draw speed if you actually train. You know what I mean?
And so, because I'm with you on certain things, right? As I've learned more from the competition world, right? You learn more and more from these stages every time you go through them. And so I bring these things like entering and exiting positions and how to get the gun up sooner as you come to a stop, or how to start to exit after that shot. Things that could very well benefit you in a gunfight. But if we're not spun up on grip, sights, and trigger, entering and exiting position doesn't mean, as no matter how cool I think it is and how I would love for us to go over it, I got to get you experts at grip, sights, and trigger first. Right?
Yeah. If you can't press the trigger without disturbing the sights, it doesn't matter
Right.
how cool you look coming into position. It's just not going to matter.
Right. You're right. So I've had to make myself focus on things like that, figuring out like, okay, take all the skills from the competition world that you have learned, that I have learned, still learning, and then what is it do I need them to do right now, right? And so it has simplified, especially when I start to write out course material. I'll throw a bunch of stuff on paper, and then you start to kind of whittle things down, right? Like that's not really necessary. I have been to classes where it's just a bunch of drills, but you didn't really tell me what I'm supposed to get out of the drill or how to shoot the drill. This was real bad on both SWAT teams. You'll just do a bunch of shooting drills and you just tell guys to shoot it. Hey, shoot this one and then this one and this one and try to do it as fast as you can. All right, but you're not actually teaching me how to
I call it the YouTube training session, because you get on YouTube and you pick out a bunch of drills that look cool and you go do them with no thought of the training effect you're trying to elicit. Like
Yeah,
the drills are just there to make you better. You're not getting better at, you don't want to get better at the drill. You want to be a better shooter. How am I using the drill to make
Correct.
myself a better shooter? Not the point of a bill drill is not the bill drill. The point of the bill drill is to become a better shooter.
Correct. So
right.
then that's that was it. That was my summation of it. Just trying to whittle things down as an instructor and kind of focus on the things that I think that they can absorb now and then use tomorrow.
I like it. Well, real quick, my friend, talk about your training company for a minute. Tell people where they can go to classes, how they can find you, how they can schedule a class or set one up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I run a training company called Silver Lake Training Group. It is owned and lead instructed by me, but I will use a lot of guys from my little team as assistant instructors and to help me demo. So I kind of cycle them out in and out as their schedule allows. But it focuses a lot on the plain clothes kind of direct action side of things. So you see rescue out of a structure, you see rescue out of a vehicle, vehicle interdictions, warrant service, small unit warrant service. That's something I have really delved into is clearing structures with very minimal people when you don't have a lot of assets or resources available. And then I teach a urban sniper class too, which really kind of hones in on how to implement that into things like public venue, mass gathering or public venue operations, or how people can use them on crime suppression operations so that you're not using somebody who's just good at observation. You can have somebody out there who's good at observation and can provide lethal coverage for you from a distance as well. So it's a lot. It's not so much on the SWAT side anymore. It's very much on kind of the plain clothes, your task forces, your narc units, your gang units, your like I said, your crime suppression units. So things like that. If the best way to get a hold of me is probably my Instagram. My handle is just Sierra1, the word Sierra, and then the number 1 ONE spelled out. You can message me. I try to do a very good job of conversing with people. My website link is on that IG page. It's just a small kind of square site. It's not anything extravagant, but if anybody is interested in any kind of closed or open courses for their department, they can feel free to reach out to me. I write a bunch of quotes to a lot of people. Some pull the trigger on them, some don't. Obviously, it's the nature of business. But yeah, that's kind of my expertise has kind of shifted away from a lot of the traditional SWAT side of things and kind of taken a lot of that experience and some of that crossover TTPs and training that you get from that side of things and trying to figure out how to better apply it on the plainclothes side of things, because those guys don't get a lot of that specialized training, or you have your SWAT guys running it and sometimes it doesn't transfer 100%.
Yeah.
So I try to figure out how to take a lot of that and better apply it to those units when they don't have a lot of the armor, the assets, the resources, your smokes and your bangs, and figuring out how to do it with the most minimal people possible, right? If you're used to having a 20-person full-time SWAT team in your narc unit, can use them as a rescue team, that's great. Well, what could you do it if you only had 4? How do we make that work? It's the job still got to get done. We've got to figure out a way to do it. So I think I have a pretty good system, and it is very simplified. I try to keep my principles and everything simplified, like we talked about, so that you can take it away from the class and use it immediately. But I welcome any and all communication through my Instagram. I try to talk to as many people as I can.
And that's a good student niche, because those units do a huge volume of dangerous work. A lot of it doesn't really rise on paper to the threshold for a SWAT call out, but
right,
that doesn't mean it's not dangerous.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
Correct.
no, that's solid, man. That's good stuff. Well, thanks for coming on, man. It's been a while since we talked. It was good catching up with you. I'm glad to see you doing well.
Too. I appreciate it. I thank you for the invite. And if you ever need a guest, count me in. You just sit me on the bench, and if you need somebody to fill in, I'm your man.
Well, we can definitely do some more, without a doubt, my friend. All right. I hope everybody enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. Definitely seek out Jason if you need the stuff he talked about, because he is a good trainer. He's a good resource. I can vouch for the guy. He's a solid dude. So hope everybody had a good time, and I will talk to everybody soon.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.